Thank you, Helen. Thank you, Mr. Minister. Really interesting conversation. Just a reminder of how rawly political and values-driven healthcare can be. And I just want to make a few links to some of the conversations we've been having. As Helen mentioned this morning, a lot of these debates are the same, but there's sort of this pressure for health policy to always angle itself into whatever the other big topic is. So competitiveness or health security. And so I thought it was really interesting what Minister van den Broeke was saying about, yeah, you know what, maybe you should just fund health because you want to fund healthy people. I also found it interesting comparing his remarks to the other prominent Belgian politician that we had on the stage yesterday, Commissioner for Preparedness, Hadja Labib. She's from the Liberal Party in Belgium. Minister van den Broeke is from the Socialists. So I thought it was interesting. She was like, look, you know, if we're trying to make sure we have good medicine supplies, there are many things we can do that don't involve extra funding. Whereas he was like, hey, we're not paying attention to how much extra funding we need. So found that difference interesting there, but maybe not surprising. The point of commonality, though, of course, was their talk about the need for more coordination at the EU level when it comes to stockpiling. So we can see some possible avenues for agreement as we move forward with these interinstitutional discussions. So with that kind of political, values-driven grounding, let's now move to technology and one of the most transformative and yet divisive forces in healthcare today, and that's artificial intelligence. AI is reshaping everything from how diseases are diagnosed to how hospital resources are managed, and even how new medicines are discovered. But this revolution comes with a hard question. How do we balance speed with safety? So far, Europe seems stuck in pilot projects, unable to scale into large real-world applications. Will Europe's regulatory leadership with the AI Act and the European Health Data Space set the global gold standard? Our next session, The AI Race, Getting It Right, looks at how Europe can innovate efficiently and safety. Please welcome our moderator and speakers coming right up.
Hello, everyone, and very warm welcome to our next session on AI. My name is Giedra Pesecita. I'm a health reporter here at Politico, and you will be spending 45 minutes with me now and with my distinguished speakers. So here we have Fulvia Raffaelli. She's head of unit for digital at DG Sante, European Commission. Anne Snowdon, the chief scientific research officer at the non-profit organization HIMSS. Rado Adrian, Director for Artificial Intelligence at Health AI. And finally, Milan Petkovic, Head of AI and Data Science Research and Development at Philips. So thank you for making your way here. And I think this is a very exciting discussion because we can agree all that we are already living in AI era. AI era is here, and in health, expectations for it are enormous. Underfunded and overstretched systems, something that we already heard in the previous interview. And in this all setting, AI is coming as a catalyst for efficiency, right? Fewer administrative burdens, faster diagnosis, and help for workforce that is spread too thin in Europe. But despite all the enthusiasm, real-world uptake remains limited. We see fragmentation, lack of standards, and fear of unintended consequences still slowing things down. So our task today is to look beyond this hype and see whether AI can really be this catalyst, this kind of salvation for European health systems, and can it make a difference not only just in paper, but also in reality. So maybe the first warm-up question for all the panelists would be, do you see AI as this savior of our outstretched healthcare systems? Let's start with you.
Well, thank you, first of all, for the invitation and for bringing this very, very exciting subject to the attention of today. I think today we cannot avoid discussing about AI as a potential part of the solution for the challenges the healthcare sector is facing today. It's not going to be the magic bullet, but it is something that we believe is going to really make a difference in the medium long term for the healthcare sector together. And this is because it can provide solutions in from many different aspects. You mentioned already, but this is about making diagnosis more precise, but it's also about combining very complex data set that could help to make healthcare and therapies much more precise, if tailored to the specific patient. And they can also help in making the whole care systems more efficiently organized and to support, and this is very important, the daily work of our care professionals. Because this is what is really center, is the person. The person must remain at the beginning, at the center of what we're doing. And AI, by managing and navigating through very complex data sets, can really help to keep this focus on the person, even more than in the future, being the person, the patient, but also, of course, the doctor and the nurses, which are daily in contact with the patients. So definitely it is a part of the solution. We're not yet there. There are still a lot of challenges to move from research, from innovation, from pilots to real scale deployment in public hospitals. We are working on it. We had a very nice study over the summer that has also identified different areas of challenges. We may go into it a bit later on, but definitely what we want is that the AI is not just for a few very super advanced university hospitals, but really supporting a fair and indeed solidarity approach, as from the industry, from the interviews before, that goes also for public hospitals, medical centers, remote locations. So that's a solution for many of the challenges we're facing today. So
thank you. So I will stop you here, just so it's a quick one. But we are hearing from you that that's not a silver bullet, but it offers solutions. And what's your take? Will it solve all our headaches?
That's the hope. I think it's excuse me, the reality is AI can achieve many important things if the health system has the digital infrastructure and maturity to be able to successfully adopt it to achieve those outcomes. And if the workforce, the clinical workforce, understands how, where, and when AI can be confidently applied to make a decision. Data we are seeing globally, we are not even close. Out of 693 hospitals in Europe, over 50% of them, just over 50%, are at level 0 digital maturity. In the US, it's about 70% at level 0. In Canada, it's 80. So the challenge here is we have a phenomenal technology. Its ability to be consumed and used to achieve these many opportunities, we're not there yet, and we have some way to go to get there.
Thank you very much. Rado, what's your take?
Yeah, well, I'll start with just this fact that AI is not a magic wand, so it's not gonna just make problems disappear suddenly. AI is a tool, but it's a very special tool because it's one of these technological revolution that has a transformative power. And if you go back 75 years ago with medical imaging, how that transformed our approach, redefined how we care and how we just intervene in people's life. I started my career at Philips, so you might jump on that afterwards. But we redefined medicine with medical imaging, and that changed how we treat someone. And I think AI today has that potential. With this new tool, we need to rethink how we're bringing care and how we're improving health. And I think that's really shifting a bit. So it's not just fixing maybe what's not working in current system, but really how we can redefine the system.
Thank you very much. Milan, your take, maybe some of the tools Philips is making is a magic wand. No, I don't know.
Sure. I will give you some examples, definitely.
You can give
I
examples
have
also
to
later.
tell that I agree with what was said. I think our approach at Philips also is we try to help hospitals to standardize, to get the data, because the data is fuel for AI. And only when they have the interoperability and the frameworks to use the data, then apply AI so that you can really get the benefits. And obviously, AI can be used to address the current challenges in healthcare systems. We all know that each of us would like to have great healthcare. We would like the cost we need to manage definitely the cost in healthcare, as well as we need to manage the satisfaction experiences of clinical staff and patients. And AI can help with all of this. On top of this, when you digitize, have digital healthcare, you create a lot of data. And we, as humans, we are not machines, so we cannot really look at all these data points and make clinical decisions. But AI has potential actually to create insights from all these data and help clinicians, empower them to really make good decisions. And in each of these directions, we as Philips, we have solutions that we provide. I can give you maybe one related to...
Maybe just before you go into the examples, so what's your take? Will it save our healthcare systems or no?
I think, as I said, it's transformative technology. It's the next revolution. We see it with ourselves as each of us are using it. So I think it will make a big difference.
Okay, thank you very much. So then going to some of the examples, I was also reading an article yesterday, maybe some of you also saw it, how British researchers, UK researchers are working together with GSK to develop new solutions to address AMR. And I think this is really exciting, and I think they were even calling it supercomputers against superbugs, because AI is used for that. It sounds really exciting. AMR is one of the biggest threats, right? So maybe now you could also share some of the really exciting things that you're working on, because sometimes we're thinking about it sounds like a science fiction, but actually it's already here.
Yeah. I mean, all of us are dealing with ChatGPT and generative AI technology, and if you think of exciting things, people would go that direction. But I think what is really important in healthcare, because healthcare is a slow adopter of technology, is to look at what was created in AI in the past decades. And that's a lot of discriminative AI technology, which solves some narrow problems, but still helps clinicians. I'll give you an example, and maybe just to give you a bit of like a context. We as Philips, we are market leader in hospital patient monitoring. So annually, 700 million people are monitored with our devices in hospitals. And we obviously extend this monitoring to home. When we say monitoring, this is all vital signs measurements from heart measurements like ECG, oxygen, blood pressure, etc., up to 24 different measurements. And if you would like to diagnose a person that has that suspect that has heart problems, very often you give to this person a device, then the person goes home, still measures the heart rate for 24 hours or 7 weeks, depending on the complaints. So that's the ECG measurements. And then someone would need to look at this data. Someone would need to look at 10,000 heartbeats and see whether this is a normal beat or arrhythmia. And there AI can help. So basically we have solutions that can automatically go over this data, diagnose patients, and help technicians and clinicians to actually create the proper diagnosis. Next to that, you can think of AI really supporting the workflow. And a colleague was talking about magnetic resonance business. So we, as Philips, we also create these imaging systems, MRI systems. And typically, if you've been, I hope not, in this type of system, it's sort of very small chamber, and you have to stay there like to be there for 20, 30 minutes, depending on which part of the body is imaging. And now with AI technology, we can actually shorten that exam 3 times. So we can really shorten the time, provide much bigger access to healthcare because many more patients can be actually imaged, and then improve also image quality at the same time, like 65% better image quality so that clinicians can make better decisions.
And Milan, when you're talking about these great solutions, right? How do you find deploying them in the healthcare systems? Like, do you find it easy to convince that the hospital should have it?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it is like the imaging technology, very similar. So if you ask a clinician, and I was talking to head of Radiology Association in UK, like whether they understand how an MR image is created. No, they do not understand because it's very complex. It's very complex mathematics here. And however, it is proven in many invalidation cases that this imaging is correct. The same holds for AI. We are talking about explainability, and it's great to have explainable AI. But if you also prove that certain things are correct in trials and clinical trials and big validation studies, then basically this technology will be accepted.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. Then I would like to share something that I was told by Rado's colleague, actually, Ricardo Baptista Leita. He's the CEO of Health AI, told me that AI solutions are actually hitting a wall. Well, currently Milan is saying that it's possible to convince that the hospital needs those solutions, but so maybe there is no problem. Rado, what would you say?
Well,
why are they hitting a wall?
Well, it's a fact. I mean, there was the European report on that, and most of AI are stuck in pilotitis, and then they cannot scale beyond that early deployment phase. And there are 2 major issues. One, I think it's really on the innovation side where you don't have enough data because AI consumes lots of data. And what you do is very specific, very narrow. And then you put it in the field and your data distribution, your population, something is not perfect fit for how you developed your AI. And I think that's the first problem. We really need to allow that technology to settle into the real world context, and that's why, I mean, we're talking about the sandboxing environment, where both regulator and innovator learn, but you really need that maturation period. The second part is the trust, and you just mentioned it. You know, medical imaging allowed you to see something that you couldn't see before. So, you know, I'm head of a department, and somebody tells me, yes, now you can see that with an MRI. You tweak these parameters, and you can see this. And it's like, yeah, but is it real or not? But then you bring the evidence. And I think that's where AI still needs to make that step, like bringing the evidence that what it shows, what it does, brings the trust level. And I think that's when we can start moving beyond that pilotitis phase.
Anne, would you like to come in on this one?
I think there's also a workforce, what you're getting at, piece. When there was a study published in February of this year that looked at AI failures. Why does it fail? 58% of those failures are to do with the organizational infrastructure that's just not able to support it adequately for that technology to be successful. 34% was human error. People are either using it for a purpose it's not intended, or they don't understand its use and they're using it inappropriately. So it's not about the technology so much. It is about whether that technology can achieve, and it's being adopted in an environment that allows it to achieve those great things. I think the other critical question, we heard earlier this morning about the very significant prevalence rates of chronic conditions. Right now, our health systems globally are very much focused on disease management, right? We diagnose and we treat, and AI has some important areas, imaging is one of them, that helps us do that faster and more efficiently. The million-dollar question, though, is, are we really thinking about AI to help people stay well, manage their chronic conditions, make sure that they mitigate those risks of heart disease, diabetes, COPD, so that they never need to come to the emergency rooms where care is much more expensive. We are not seeing that globally. We call that person-enabled care. It is the lowest scores globally out of 65 countries. We're not there yet. So the real critical question is, what do we need AI to achieve? What is that strategy? If it's to help health systems be sustainable, help people stay healthy and well so that those chronic conditions don't require hospitalization, or we track screening so that cancer rates do fall, that's where I would suggest AI really has an opportunity. But where we are right now is using AI for our current disease management processes and helping them to be better, faster, maybe more accurate. So I think the fundamental question is, what do we need it to achieve? And
it sounds like it requires the total shift, right?
It's a pretty significant shift. Yeah. I had this conversation with Rado. He said, yeah.
Fulvia, do you think we're ready for this kind of shift? And also maybe you would like to comment on the data aspect, right? Europe is gearing up. EHDS is in making. Blood for all the AI systems. But you just mentioned the data of 50% of hospitals not having digital infrastructure and needed maturity. So, well, very long question for you, Fulvia. Let's see how you will handle.
So, thank you. Let me start from something. I think we should we run the risk of taking the issues and the challenges related to AI a bit in isolation. I think this is part of a bigger revolution that goes with digitalization, but even more with the use of data in massive and much more, let's say, diffused use of data across the old healthcare sectors. We are facing really a revolution because you mentioned before now data are gathering at source in enormous amounts, and nobody is in the position to actually use this data. So where actually AI can make the difference is to enable and to accelerate the use of this enormous amount of data, and in all directions, not only to accelerate diagnosis or to have it more specific therapies, but also indeed to empower the citizens and the patient to get their data and to use actually this data in their daily life to prevent, to have a more careful, approach to their well-being. So we're facing a revolution which is related to the use of data, and of course the European health data space in Europe is the engine room for making that happen, because all the data which are today available are actually very scarcely used in real clinical practice. And with the obligation we will enter into force in a step-by-step approach from 2027 to 2029, the use of this data will become a daily use for the doctors, for the patients that we are, and for the hospital managers in the long run. This would also contribute to the trust, because I also very much agree with the previous panelists that trust is central, and data, the quality of data, the reliability of data, the actually transparency of the use of data is crucial to increase the trust of the users of the data. So the European data space is a big, ambitious project. It's going well, I can assure you. So we are full speed, of course, in the implementation into the definition of the technical specifications that actually would allow the obligations to come into practice in 2029 for each one of us. And what I would like to say is that we see a very strong commitment from member states in particular, but also from all stakeholders to make that happen in the best way, and with the AI in mind, because potentially the European health data space is really feeling one of the main gaps about the use and the large use of AI technologies, about data availability, data quality, and also the possibility of combined data from different sources, because this is what European health data it is about. Of course, this is possible already, but as you mentioned, in very specific and narrow areas. We do have mini data spaces on cancer images, on genomics, national registries. So we do have already very good examples, but the revolution of the European data space is to bring that up population-wise, so making really available. And AI can also improve us, can also support the European health data spaces in making those data more coherent as source, because of course we know the data let's say, gathered at source are not always of super high quality, but now we're also looking at AI with the possibility to help us in structuring data and improving, curing data much more systematically as source so they can become more readily available for later on. All the technical specification we are working on with the member states are thought with the AI in mind. So this is something we are really very careful. Know the project we're running. We are trying to be as future-proof as possible, so to have that use in mind. The two goes together. AI is not something that's going to make the revolution itself, is a part of this bigger revolution.
How promising does it sound? Maybe Rado, would you like to comment, or Anne, for AI, the EHDS, European Health Data Space, availability of more data flowing freely?
Well, it's fundamental. I mean, we talk, you cannot take AI in isolation. It's part of a global digital strategy. And I mean, digital means data, basically. It's bits, 1 and 0s all over the world. So you need that infrastructure, physical and political infrastructure to support that. You need to really make sure that, there is the level of transparency and there is a level of standardization. I mean, you mentioned about monitoring. Again, if you retrofit how many devices are for cardiac monitoring, and you have your device, Siemens has their device, everybody does the patient monitoring solutions. But if you bring all this data together and try to extract some insightful information, and these data are not interoperable, don't share anything in common, it's going to be harder. So you need an AI to bring that harmonized view before you can use it to do the real work on identifying potential new patterns for pathologies. So I think you need to look at it as a whole and really what are the standards we need to think of, what are the interoperability parameters we need to agree upon, and that work comes early on. And I think that's where that data space is critical, because you need to set those baseline agreement between all countries to say this is what we agree to share, this is how we're going to share it, and these are the basic principle we're going to just have in common, so that we can make sense of bringing innovation and not retrofit something on top of it because we don't ask ourselves the right questions at the beginning.
Okay, so it sounds like it's a strong baseline to build up. But in one interview that I had with a Slovenian health minister, she was telling me that she feels that there is a flood of artificial intelligence applications, and they opened a call for projects, and there were 52 startups that submitted their projects, and in the end they picked one. But it was really hard for Slovenians to make the choice because they don't know how to judge. Like it's not like that they don't know, no one knows, kind of, right? Like, so lawmakers are a bit lost where to streamline the funds that they have, and the funds are not huge. The healthcare systems don't have a lot of money. And how should they choose?
Yeah, this is the challenge and the hope of innovation, right? The technology, the design, the development of new technologies, AI is today's very bright, shiny object, right? It has to achieve value, purpose, and impact for the system it was designed for. Far too often, our brilliant developers of technologies like AI don't actually understand those environments they're going to be implemented. So I'm a nurse, where I started my career, and the road is paved with technologies where, as a nurse, they'd say, oh, it's going to help your patients save lives. Well, show me exactly how that's going to work when I'm standing in an emergency room and there's 80 people in a waiting room. 4 of them are critical at very high risk. I don't really have time to figure out whether that particular technology is going to save which person's life. So I think there are many assumptions where AI, to be faster, more impact and value for both the clinicians and front and center patients we're delivering care to, is those developers have to work with us, not just develop for us and say, all will be good, just trust, and the technology will solve everything. And I think that's been why healthcare is so slow to adopt technologies. There are many assumptions on the technology developer side until they see those real worlds and the legacy systems we're working in. Those 50% of those hospitals at level 0, what that means, as a nurse, when the patient walks in, I have to go in one software system to document that they're here, a different one to figure out what meds they're on, another one on the labs to know who tested what blood work, and then get into the imaging system to say, did anyone do a chest x-ray? That takes a lot of time to go in and out of legacy IT systems that are not connected. Where AI can help us when you connect those systems, as I walk into that patient's room, I know exactly where they've been, what care they've had, what challenges they've had, what worked, what didn't. Now I can make a very informed decision. That's the 50% of hospitals that need to get there. And AI can help us, but all those wonderful developers, until they get that, they understand that workflow, that flow of data and how I need to use it, it doesn't always happen.
And what I heard also that they struggle to get their tools reimbursed by healthcare systems, which is absolutely linked, right?
Absolutely. If you can't demonstrate that value of that tool, then the funding models can't possibly justify paying for it. We have a finite number of dollars, GDP, to pay for healthcare. In the US, 18% of the GDP pays for healthcare. In Canada, it's 12. In Europe, it's around 8. There's a finite spend, so making choices, what you're going to reimburse, what you can't afford to reimburse is really fundamental. But demonstrating that value in real world settings, in those rather challenging environments, it's hard. And and it's hard for companies. We need to make that easier.
Milan, is that hard for you?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, there are different sort of like reasons for that. We address some of them, so lack of data, and we definitely applaud to the Health Data Space Initiative. I think we would like definitely to see this more accelerated if possible, so that we can get data faster and sooner, and we would like to make sure that we do not wait till the moment that everything is ready, but that we really go step by step and investigate how would that work basically on the way. So try to have sandboxes, really try to see actually how would that work, and make sure that we address all the aspects. For example, here in Europe we have GDPR as legislation, and we tend to have some gray zone in how we anonymize data. In the US, it's HIPAA, and you sort of take out 18 attributes and that's it. Here in Europe, we are talking about risks. And then on one hand, we would like to make sure that our systems, when we deploy them, that they will work for everyone. On the other hand, like when you collect the data and you anonymize the data, then you might need to take out all kind of information like BMI of a patient, or race, or age, etc. And then how are you going to actually make sure that your systems will work for every of these subgroups? Very difficult. So we need to definitely ensure that the data spaces are taking all this into account, so that we understand what are the elements, because we also participate in many of these European projects, and then there are great ideas from some of universities, and I'm also a university professor part-time, and I understand people, but then you see like people thinking of, okay, we can create a federated learning infrastructure, and then when you translate this into how people develop the algorithm in a company, you understand that, okay, I mean, the developer would like to see the data in order to be able to understand why his algorithm doesn't work on certain data subject, etc. And if you do not allow that, then it's difficult really to make sure these algorithms are really reliable in practice. So I think all these elements need to be taken into account. And I think we have a chance to use these European projects to really try these things before we get to the final regulations. Yeah.
Fulvia, you would like to comment?
Yes, just to say, well, first of all, it's nice in these days to hear from industry that we accelerate, that you're expected to accelerate the implementation of one single regulation, so that's nice to hear. The challenges are enormous, but we understand very well what you're saying in terms of adding the use to, having the needs to accelerate the testing and the moving, because of the object 2029 for AI is next century. We understand it very well. Now, in particular for the secondary use, we do not have really a legal basis to activate the part of the cross-border exchanges before 2029. But of course, we are in the different joint actions and the different actions we have preparatory to this very much in mind, and also try to see how we could test the system with synthetic data or very similar set, so that we will make all our efforts. We understand very well these challenges. We're looking at possibilities to really test the system before it comes into force, so without waiting really 2029. And I think that those smaller, let's say, data spaces that I mentioned before can be very interesting test beds for the implementation of the future European health data space altogether. I wanted also to react on what you said, that the fact that we also agree that the users are the bigger, are the ones that are not yet invited around the table. They are a bit absent in the conversation on AI, which has been very much for very understandable reasons, driven by technology, research, innovators. Now we need to bring those users more into the picture, so that indeed we are driven by their needs and not by the ideas that we have of their needs. That's also why we started a couple of weeks ago a big project, Compass, which is about really setting up a community of users, so that we can interact with the different parties and bring that part more in the conversation, because that's what we see as missing element into because indeed the deployment of AI solutions is a different job, let's say, than looking at developing the possibility itself. And that's what we are going to focus as DG Sant, of course, in very much cooperation with our colleagues in DG Connect, relying on the horizontal part of the work that they're doing in the context of the Apply AI strategy, so across the all sectors, and then developing something more specific to the area of health and focusing on deployment in the coming years. So that's the focus, moving from this pilot scale to a large-scale deployment and getting the users, all of them should be in the passion, be the doctors, the nurses, but also the hospital managers, for instance, into the game.
I'm wondering now, the technology is moving so quickly, right? Are regulators just running after them? Like, can like, for example, health technology assessments, how we evaluate new technologies that are coming in, are they ready to assess AI solutions that are being presented in the form of medical devices, especially as we have health technology, HTA regulation, which came in Europe? So maybe Fulvia, you could just quickly say, how do you feel? Are we competing against developers?
It is a very interesting question, and it is a question altogether about the timing that we take from legislating, from the time we run the impact assessment, and we go to the decision process, and then we go into the implementation. So it is a real question, the time for legislation. On HTA, indeed, as of today, the methodology is not yet really fully aligned with the needs of looking also a medical device with an AI component. The methodology is continuously under development and updating, so this is taken very much into consideration by the colleagues working in these areas. So we continuously try to keep up with the development, but it is true that we are running a bit to take. That's also why we need to design the legislation from the beginning with the margin of maneuver to define the technicalities in a flexible way, so that indeed we can really continuously update and take it up with the development of the markets there.
Milan, would you like to come in on the assessment part, or?
Sure. Yeah. So maybe one step back. So I think in Europe we can proudly say that we are leading the world in regulatory aspects, and I think that is fine. This is great. But I think we need to make sure that we also lead in the effective deployment of the technology, and this needs to be balanced always. So we definitely love to see simplified regulations, especially with AI Act and more sectorial approach, like you have, like in the US, FDA, which issues like machine learning guidelines, and then you have it with one body, everything, so you understand how you need to develop your system. You need to have data from 3 different sites and proper data representation at least, and then make sure that your algorithms will work well. So something like this I think we need in Europe, because now it is becoming a bit more difficult to have a horizontal legislation and more sectorial vertical legislation, and then there is a concern whether notified bodies will be able to actually address this timely, so that we do not have delay of certification of our medical devices.
Rado, do you have examples, maybe even of some of the startups that have great solutions, and they bring their tool to evaluators, and evaluators don't know what to do with it?
Not specific examples. I mean, I work in startup, and it happened. But again, I think the regulations are written in ways that you can interpret, and as long as you have you know how you justify your choices or your processes and your methods, you have the rules that tell you, okay, you are compliant or not. Now the expertise behind in the reviewer is where maybe there are debates, and that's why it's a conversation, and that's why you have auditors to really look into your technical files, in your experiment logs, and in your strategy on how you will capture data to just continuously monitor your system in the real world. So it's a trust game, but I think to answer your question on how do we catch up, naively I'd say just use AI to catch up with AI. I mean, not all AI tools are equal. It's not all magic tools and black boxes that do guru things. No, some of them are very pragmatic and are really built around rules and productivity. It's the RBA, it's the robotic business optimization tool. So you can speed up some of the processes based on AI that are easy to understand and simple, but then that helps you to monitor the data comes into an external solution. That helps you really identify what are the gaps when somebody submits a technical dossier. So I think you can use AI to catch up a bit.
What do you think, Anne? AI for catching up with AI?
So AI is not one technology. It's a suite of technologies, and the answer often is it depends. Machine learning algorithms, pretty stable, work very well. We see them a lot to predict risk of sepsis in hospitals. That's a life-threatening infection. And it's widespread, and most health systems have been able to adopt that. It's a very useful algorithm. Large language models, ChatGPT, whole different ballgame. The error rates recently published are anywhere from 40% to 80%. Really depends on the sophistication of the user to know, does that large language model make sense? Is it hallucinating? And that's changing rapidly. So I think the other part of the equation here is look at the health workforce today. We have a global workforce shortage. We do not have the capacity to train our way out of it. The shortage will double in the next decade. So the real question is the generational groups in our current workforce and how are we using these tools to support them. So I'm in the Canadian setting, not the US. That's just important for us to say, given all that's going on. Forgive me. 60% of our nurses in our acute care settings have less than 3 years experience. That's different from pre-COVID, where we had a much broader range of very experienced nurses who were supporting and enabling the younger nurses with less experience. So if you're going to introduce models, AI models, into a group of workforce with very limited experience, you have to ask the question, where are those guardrails and safeguards? At the same time, that same group of nurses could be, and we're seeing a lot of interesting AI tools to help them make good decisions. So an AI tool that analyzes a wound in a patient's skin breakdown and tells that nurse it's a stage 3, the following protocols must be followed, managing that wound according to best practice, that would help that nurse because she doesn't have the senior nurses who have seen many of those wounds help her make those good decisions. So the complexity of the work environments here really matters. The workforce and the expected shifts in our workforce is a context in which you really have to understand what that AI tool or tools achieve and where are the guardrails to help make sure that it achieves what it's intended to.
Yeah, I think it's a very important point, and we heard many times, I think, how important is also the training for healthcare professionals, and also that it does become a tool rather than additional burden in their daily practices. As we're running towards the end of the session, I would like to ask, I wonder what you will say, because as it was already mentioned, Europe is really good with regulations and putting laws up front. So like we have AI Act, European Health Data Space, Health Technology Assessment, GDPR that was already mentioned, Medical Devices Regulation. So maybe this builds a very strong foundation to lead on AI field. What do you think? Milan, let's start this time from you and go around.
It's always great to lead, and I hope we can, but if we cannot lead, at least being closely second and third is also fine.
Thank you. Rado?
Yeah, you need those guardrails, and I think that's paramount, especially in healthcare. But again, I think we need to weave them in how innovation happens rather than just stack them on top of innovation. So I think, again, it's a constant dialogue. I think, you know, as policymakers, it's really how do we enable keeping those guardrails in ways that they really smooth the line of innovation.
And what do you think? Can Europe lead? You're coming from across the Atlantic, so.
I think Europe is incredibly well positioned to lead. Your EU Commission is writing about deployment networks. That creates a learning ecosystem. Given the complexities of healthcare today at workforce and technologies, learning from each other will absolutely accelerate. I am not seeing that in either the Asia-Pacific countries, certainly not in North America either, given the very significant outlier in the US. It's a very revenue-generating system, not a publicly funded system like Canada and some of the other OECD countries. So I think Europe has the opportunity to lead and to take that agenda forward and help all of us in other countries learn from them. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed you do.
I love this positive note, Fulvia.
I think we have that opportunity. Now, the previous commission made a lot of work in terms of setting up the regulatory framework, which is there and which is very complementary. I mean, all the piece of legislation and looking at the issues from different angles, and altogether they represent a very complete, let's say, bodies of regulation that indeed set the rules for the future. Now we need to move on and to look really at the implementation and deployment. That's the bigger challenge for this commission, focusing on the future, on moving on. Stop complaining about the framework. The framework is there, I think it's very clear. Now let's move together with all the different partners and the different actors, from the users to the manufacturers to the regulators, to make all those promises, the AI, in a reality, let's say, for the healthcare sector altogether.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the speakers. Give a warm round of applause, please. And I'm leaving you now with Sarah Wheaton for the next session. Thank you so much.